A child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. God is smiling on you, but he's frowning too, because only God knows what you'll go through. You'll grow up in a ghetto living second rate, and your eyes will sing a song called Deep Hate. Deep hate, deep hate. I am a bastard, the product of low-income teenage parents. My father, a crack dealer, was frequently incarcerated. I grew up in an abusive household with a mentally impaired great aunt and a crack-addicted uncle. I experienced bullying and witnessed atrocity after atrocity after atrocity. Malcontent stories became so normalized that they became my lullabies. For most people who endure adverse childhood experiences, better known as ACEs, I was considered the walking dead. In America, 63.9% of adults have experienced one adverse childhood experience. The CDC reports that 17.3% have experienced 4 or more. Studies show Black males are more impacted than any other group. Adverse childhood experiences can have an impact on an individual's self-esteem and add to negative self-talk. This negative self-talk becomes the inner critic that leads many to high-risk behaviors, mental health issues, and chronic diseases. You may be shocked that this inner critic sounds an awful lot like me and you, your mama and your cousins too. The reason being is because these messages come through, they get passed down like family heirlooms. See, the power of life and death is in the tongue. And oftentimes, these negative messages are transmitted through family stories. The first stories that we learn about ourselves come from our family. These are the people who are supposed to love us the most. Studies show that children exposed to adverse childhood experiences internalize negative self-talk from their loved ones. And this will lead to problematic and traumatized behaviors. What we find is that many of our unhealed family members may have good intentions, but many times their stories bring with them generational curses, racism, sexism, poor education, dysfunction, and trauma. With that being said, some individuals can overcome these by using the power of the pen. Before I discovered Hip-Hop Therapeutic Writing, adverse childhood experiences made me hide my light. It definitely made me hide my light on so many levels. When family members taught me to hate myself, a lot of times when they taught me to hate myself, they made me feel and believe that I was worthless. So when family members told me their lives would have been better had I not been born, I believed them. when they said I was too stupid and would never amount to anything, I believed them. They taught me to hate, and I hated myself. They ghost wrote their scripts on my heart, and I became their puppet. But in the words of Goody Mob, hip-hop peeped in my window, and pow, she saved me. Her words were medicinal, therapeutic. Just like the rapper Common in the song, I Used to Love Her, I saw hip-hop as my priestess. Her words transformed me, and now I stand before you a survivor. Some of you may say, hip-hop, how, Sway? Yes, hip-hop. The same music that promotes misogyny and violence, but yet at its core, for marginalized communities of color, hip-hop stories address psychological traumas linked to adverse childhood experiences. Hip-hop helped me to rewrite my narrative and remix my mind. Allow me to break this down for you. Just like hip-hop samples a track, we can sample the narratives of our past and flip it. I call it the EDR method. The E in the EDR method represents externalization. Survivors of adverse childhood experiences must isolate themselves. They must go to a safe place free from distractions. Then they must pick up a pen and write from a strength-based position because they are no longer victims. By taking the pen, what they will end up doing is taking the pen and taking the thoughts from their mind and putting it on paper. And this is the first step to empowerment. This is the first step to empowerment. Now, some individuals may say to themselves, but I write poorly. You don't have to write well academically. For survivors of adverse childhood experiences, this is not about gaining perfection. See, perfection is about adding on. For us who are survivors, it is about stripping away like a sculptor. By stripping away the negative, we discover our true form. The next stage of the EDR process, the D represents deconstruction. Just like an old school DJ, we must dig in our mental crates and discover where our loops come from. Put differently, we must remember all the childhood stories that caused us pain. For instance, Kendrick Lamar has a hit song called Luther. In the song Luther, it includes a sample from Luther Vandross, If This World Were Mine. Imagine if we, as survivors of adverse childhood experiences, were able to discover the secrets behind our family stories. Imagine if we were able to do that. Let's scratch that. Let's take it to another level. Imagine if we can question those narratives. Like, where did this story coming from? Whose voice is this? And does it still represent me? Those are the things that we must think about When we think about our family stories, we must use only the parts of those stories that still add value to our lives. Those parts that do not add value to our lives, we must destroy them. As a matter of fact, we must pick up the pen and unleash our inner battle rapper. And we must destroy our opponents like Kendrick did Drake. Once the E and the D are finished in the EDR method, many survivors of adverse childhood experiences may feel a sense of emptiness. And why wouldn't they? They have purged part of their identity. So this is why the R, rewriting the narrative, is so important in the recovery process. First of all, survivors must remember that this will be a deep moment of self-reflection. And in this self-reflection, they must realize that the narratives that their family wrote about were written about them, not for them. So they have to remember that. And in that space of realizing that narrative was written about them and not for them, what they must realize is that although these bad things happened to them during their childhood, that they must realize that it is not their fault. However, it is their responsibility to pen the life that they want to live. And I call this entering your rite of passage. So how do you go about doing that? Well, first and foremost, as a survivor, you must write a manifesto. It doesn't matter the form that this manifesto comes in. It could come in prose, poetry, or a hip-hop song. It does not matter. The only thing that matters is that you write as a free and healed person. As I stated before, the power of life and death is in the tongue. And now I stand before you, a bastard who no longer sings a song of deep hate. As a matter of fact, I am no longer a bastard. I am a Nancy, the spider god of stories. And here at Georgia State University, I teach my students to become weavers of their own story. As a matter of fact, they are starving hip-hop artists, embodying the spirit of Eminem as they lose themselves in the moment in their stories. That's what I'm expecting them to do. As my hip-hop testimony concludes, if you cannot remember all the verses that I spit, I want you to at least remember this hook. What happened to you was not your fault. That chapter was written by unhealed authors. But they do not have the power to finish your story. Through hip-hop therapeutic writing, the EDR method, you all have the power to externalize, deconstruct, and rewrite your story. Let us try to do this right now. Let's begin this process. So I'm going to need some crowd participation because this is like hip-hop here. Here we go. First of all, I want you to think about your rap name. Okay? You over there, you are MC such and such, okay? So that's you. Okay. Next, you must free yourself from those toxic family narratives. Take a deep breath. Now, let's start the rewriting process. In the words of Kendrick Lamar, I want you to repeat after me. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. Your mind has been remixed. Thank you.